good morning, good day, whatever time you're watching this. No TMNT today. Instead, I'm not sure what's purple. Barney? I guess I'm Barney today. Hey! Hello, kids! Let's dance! Not on the treadmill, that'll kill me. So, yesterday was fun to see all of the responses to the video about Titanic when I got home from my normal early week job. And so I do vending for a living. I do that for a business. I have a vending business. And I do that nearly part of the week. Anyway, so I'm going to kind of talk about vending a little bit today in the spectrum of other amazing accidental inventions. I was having a conversation with someone about things that were just accidentally created during the process of other inventions. Among them, one was Coca-Cola. It was originally a man was trying to cure his headaches, and so he put a bunch of mixtures together, or items together, and discovered it did not cure his headache, but it tasted really good, and they created Coke. On August 24th, 1853, there was a man named George Crumb, who was actually a Native American and African American mix, and he worked as a cook at a place called Moon Lake Lodge, and one of the customers was being rather obnoxious because French fries were just starting to come out at that time, and they were very popular. And this customer thought that the French fried potatoes were too thick and sent them back apparently more than one occasion. So George Crumb, being annoyed, cut potatoes very thin, cooked them to a crisp, and put a bunch of salt on them, and sent them back out to the customer. Guess what invention that was? Potato chips. There's a number of them I've just sort of looked up and heard interesting facts about. Some of the other ones. Oh, Play-Doh. Red, blue, yellow, all the different colors of Play-Doh. Play-Doh was originally a wallpaper cleaner. Back in the early days, before we had other methods for heating our homes, people would use coal, and it would leave like a soot residue on the wallpapers, and the wallpaper would make it dirty. So Play-Doh, which originally had detergent in it, was it called Play-Doh at the time, was used to clean the walls. But when coal stopped being the primary reason or the primary method of cooling, they had no use for it. So the man who invented that original product, his sister helped him to come up with the idea of a child's toy, because her kids, I guess, were playing with it and formed it into shapes and such. So they removed the detergent and a few little changes and added colors, and ta-da, Play-Doh. So I'll go back to the accidental inventions in a second, but as far as the winners for episodes 21 and 22, they have not been drawn yet. Episode 22 is still within the original 24-hour frame. So those will be drawn tomorrow night by a very special guest. And it will be done in a continuous video. The winners will be announced in that video late tomorrow evening. So stick with us tomorrow night to find out who the winners are. They will be contacted shortly thereafter. And remember that as much as I've gotten answers, and I have loved some of these answers, I tell you in the videos, and it's just part of, for my side of it, because I do the giveaways, that the answers that you must share must be the ones that I provide you in the video. It's very, very important. You can look up famous people and draw history about them, and that's great, and I love that you do that, if you do that. But the answers do have to be from the video, not from research online. I think you should definitely do research online, and I love that people do that. And I learned something yesterday from, I don't want to mispronounce your name. I know Patel is part of it. I actually have a friend whose last name is Patel, who's a filmmaker in the city where I live. And he's very smart too, actually. But this user came back with the fact that there were 16 watertight compartments on the Titanic, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, the point I was making, I kind of got sidetracked because I get so excited when I see people share information and get excited about, learning new things. It makes me really happy. Anyway, so remember that you must like the video. And I can tell on my end who's liked the videos or not. So I know on day one, all the people who submitted comments liked the video. Day two is not the same case. Out of all the answers, there were only 3 likes. And I know who those came from, so make sure you like the video from yesterday. Before I do the drawing tomorrow night, well, my special guest does the drawing, so you can be considered. All right, so, and thank you for all the comments and education and just activity around some of these subjects. I think that's really, really wonderful. So, some of the other interesting ones. Matches. Here's a fun one. Let's say it was 1926. I think 1926. I may be wrong about that date. There's so many pieces of information. But it's always been very difficult to light fire, and so there have been many approaches to try and creating manners of lighting fire. So this one inventor was mixing chemicals together, stirring them together, and noticed that some of the chemicals had dried on the edge of his stir stick. And when he was attempting to scrape them off, because he was cooking them, by the way, he did it to scrape them off on his fireplace. It ignited, and he originally marketed that as a 3-inch stick called friction lights. He didn't patent it though, so someone else came along later and patented it and called it lucifers, which is a really interesting name if you know the reference, the biblical reference. And ultimately it turned into matches. I thought that one was really interesting. Chocolate chip cookies, another dessert. A lady who was a cook at a, I think it was the Toll House. I think that's actually what it was called, was the Toll House. She was making a chocolate pastry and ran out of chocolate. Like chocolate used to come in hunks, basically. And so she got some Nestle chocolate chips and poured them in, expecting them to melt into creating the pastry, but they held their form and shape. They just softened. But that was how chocolate chips cookies started, because still served it to her customers, and they liked it. And eventually Nestle asked to use the name of the place and created Nestle Toll House morsels, chocolate chip cookies. Let's see, this was kind of an adult one, but interesting. Viagra. Did you know Viagra was originally a blood pressure medicine? It was designed originally for that, but during testing, they discovered that the principal side effect was long-term erections. So they ended up marketing it instead as, after some adaptations, as a product for erectile dysfunction. But it started off as a blood pressure medication. Let's see. Oh, today's trivia question. Here you go. What household item originally weighed 750 pounds? And how tall was it? So, anyway, some of the other ones I thought were interesting. Oh, Velcro. So there was a guy who was out hunting. His name was George de Mestral. I hope I'm saying that right. George de Mestral, or George de Mestral. He was out going through wooded areas with his dog, and I think they called them cockleburs or something like that. They used to get into his clothes, like what we call grassburs or grassburs. And they would stick to his clothes and to his dog's fur. So he took them home, a sample home, and put it under a microscope and noticed that there were tiny hooks within that burr. And so he set out to create a product that was not glue, but that would help things stay together. And so now you can imagine that Velcro is basically an item with one soft material like clothing, the other rough with probably tiny hooks in it that connects it to the other piece, but it can still be removed and returned back to it. Velcro. I love Velcro, by the way. I love it. I'm not attracted to it anymore. Let's just stop there. No. So let's see. What else was interesting? There's so many fascinating things. Penicillin was created. Two things actually. Penicillin was created when a scientist left his petri dishes, walked away, and came back one day and discovered that they had molded. But there was a certain area within one of the petri dishes where the mold would not spread to, thus making him realize that there was a chemical that would prevent the development of molding or essentially infection. Thus he created penicillin. Popsicles were created by an 11-year-old boy. How's that for awesome? So he was trying to make his own soda, and it was a cold day, and he was stirring his mixture on the porch of his home. Was called in to go to bed. The next day when he came out, instead of having soda, the product he had created had frozen to the stick he was stirring. It still tasted good. Thus, ta-da! Popsicles. He also created Scooby-Doo. No, I'm kidding, he didn't do it. I love you, Roy. So let's see. Tea. Tea was created when a man in the 15th century was boiling his water to make it clean, and leaves from tea trees blew into his water, and he noticed it turned it a light brown. Instead of pouring it out, because he was familiar with herbs and such, he decided to taste it, and it liked the taste. And then tea was born. Let's see what I was talking about. Excuse me. Oh, Slinky. Slinky was created, which is a child's toy. It's not really as popular as it once was, but Slinky was originally a spring that was used as someone was trying to create a meter for naval equipment. And the spring popped off, and the guy who was designing this noticed that the spring was walking on its own, which is, slinkies. If you don't know about slinkies go like this. But, they walk downstairs, they're fun in pairs, they make a slinkity sound. So today's answer is microwave oven, and it was 6 foot tall. So that was a pretty cool one. What else? Some other ones. There's another chemical I was telling you about. Oh, saccharin, artificial sweetener. Artificial sweetener was created when a man who worked with tar forgot to wash his hands when he went in for dinner, and he noticed that everything he was eating had a sweet flavor to it. And I guess saccharin must have been used to cause tar not to sort of stick to your hands. And so he noticed it was sweet, and then started using saccharin as an artificial sweetener instead of, well, I'm sure they still use it with tar, but I don't know enough about tar. But But they did start using it as an artificial sweetener. Let's see what else. So many interesting things to learn when you really start digging into facts about how things were created. You're just so shocked how much was created by accident or in the process of creating something else. Let's see, some of the other ones I can remember off the top of my head from when I was watching earlier. Someone talked about that. Oh, this isn't part of the challenge, but the first items tested, or first item that was that acknowledged that this household product would work was when a candy bar melted, and then popcorn was attempted, and eggs, and the egg actually exploded in the face of one of the testers. Apparently. So I liked so much of that, learning about different facts and things that were created. There was one that was talking about adult toys, but I'm going to spare that because I know at least one young person's watching the video. I think Viagra about as far as I want to go right now with that. Let's see. So I just encourage people to go and look up amazing products. Oh, also, there's one thing I wanted to say that was on politics. I really don't normally like to talk about politics all the time. I'm trying to spare you of that, and myself, because it's become very frustrating. But there's an ad that was released by a group that's called I Love War, and it's showing things of Donald Trump where he's talking about I know more than the generals, and that was a stupid statement, by the way. I don't agree with that. Doesn't mean I think he's inadequate. I think it's just, he's trying to show that he is knowledgeable, and it was off the cuff stuff before he realized that he needed to kind of harness his ability to speak properly. And he's still struggling with the teleprompter. But anyways, so he knew more about the war, and he said, I want to blow him up, and they were using all these little excerpts. Well, Donald Trump's actually not normally a pro-war guy. He actually he was actually very vocal about not going to Iraq after the 9/11 when Bush originally wanted to go to war. Hillary Clinton supported it. Donald Trump did not. So he said, if you're going to go to war after we were already there, he said, if you're going to do that, then you should take the oil, or I think that was what his original perspective was, take the oil as a way of using it for money to pay back the families of soldiers who were killed during that war and during the attack. But he was originally an anti-war guy. He just said once you were there, you might as well finish it and get something for it. Because if we were investing so much money in, it really wasn't a war we should have gotten into in the first place. But so many of our people from America died. And that means all walks of life, by the way. Very few people realize that when we talk about soldiers, we're talking about people from all walks of life who've invested, their, as Lincoln put it, the last full measure of devotion. And I love that statement. Every time it kind of makes me a little bit emotionally teary. I don't actually tear up all the time, but I love it when he said in the Gettysburg Address that, these men gave the last full measure of devotion. I love hearing, I love sharing facts like that and hopefully inspiring people to go look up some more interesting things. There's so many ways you can find it. I'm sure you can find stuff on YouTube. I'm sure you can find stuff on Google. It's just a brilliant place. Do not forget to be a subscriber if you want to comment. Number dose. Don't forget to like the video. And D, no, I'm making fun of Home Alone. And three, make sure that you leave a comment with the 2 answers to today's trivia question, which I gave you earlier in the video. So get them from the video. As much as I know it would be fun to go and search, and I hope you will, but go get them from the video and leave them below. And I hope you have a brilliant day. Remember, knowledge is power. Keep learning every day, having fun, share facts with your friends, kind of mess with them, bet them for popsicles. And take care. I'll see you soon. Be well.